Welcome to A Kind Life. Today I'm really grateful to have Liz Douglas here with me. How are you going, Liz?
Great, thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, really excited to have you here. So I guess for anyone who's not aware of you on social media, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what gets you up in the morning.
So, my name is Liz. I live in Melbourne with my partner Steve and our cat Sooki. I work full time, but I'm also like a vegan foodie creator on Instagram, which is how we've met and how I've become connected with this podcast, which is cool. But the main thing that gets me up in the morning, I'd have to say, is probably vegan creative side hustle, which is vegan diaries. So that's making lots of recipes, doing a podcast, and just connecting with other lovely people online. It's been such a cool experience meeting everybody.
And so tell us about Vegan Diaries. Where did you come up with the idea for this?
So I went vegan 3 years ago now, and well, nearly 3 years ago. And when I first made the change, the hardest part that I found was not actually what I was eating or like how I was going to meet my nutritional needs. It was about connecting with other people and feeling like I was a bit of an outsider now in some of the social circles that I sort of lived in. And, like with colleagues and with friends, I just felt like now I was a bit distant and different, like I felt like I'd had this fundamental shift in the way that I saw the world. And I wanted to talk to people about it, but I also was feeling a bit vulnerable and a bit sad about, some of the things that I'd learned about the animal agriculture industry. And it was so new, like being vegan, I didn't want to like debate it or like risk kind of losing my, certainty with this decision. So what I wanted to do though was to, in my own little way, I suppose, prove that I could be vegan and still enjoy all this amazing food and still, have food that people who are not vegan would probably like the look of and want to eat. And I guess it was just, I don't know. And the other side of it was that I wanted to channel my energy into something positive. Like when I went vegan and I watched, some of the documentaries and I watched a lot of YouTube and I listened to a lot of podcasts as well, actually, I just felt so sad and just so, so angry and so like just distrusting, I guess, of the world because I just felt like I'd been lied to. And I know that so many people say that about going vegan, but I didn't want to stay in that feeling because I don't think it's very productive. And I want to be a productive person. I enjoy like being busy. And so I guess I was just trying to channel that energy some way that was going to actually hopefully prove that veganism wasn't such a strange thing and that it's not so hard to do and that, it's something that should be, appealing and fun.
Yeah. And did you find that you were sort of quite isolated after you went vegan?
um, like nobody was awful about it, you know what I mean? Like everybody was pretty understanding. Like they made a few jokes and things like that, and people would maybe just gently tease me a little bit, but I just felt so distressed by what I'd learned. And I remember just watching, it was like Dairy is Scary was one of the YouTube videos. And then nothing overly graphic. Like I listened to this podcast called How to Go Vegan because this is literally me like processing a few things in my head. And I was searching like on the podcast app, How to Go Vegan, because I was commuting a long way at the time back and forth to work, like a couple of hours a day. And I started listening to this podcast and I can't remember the name of the host, but she just so succinctly explained the arguments for veganism and explained the injustices that happen to animals in the different industries, like not just meat as well. Obviously, she talked about eggs and dairy, and she didn't do it in a judgmental way. She just did it in this way where it was just very plain, and it was like, here's why if you respect animals, you don't even have to love animals, but if you recognize them as sentient, like here's why what we're doing is wrong. And she just very plainly explained how their bodies are used in the process. And I was just crying on my way to work every day or like on the way home. But it was like the more that I learned, the more I sort of went into this spiral. Like I just felt like I kind of went like quite inward, you know what I mean? In the first few weeks, I was like really horrified, but also like felt like I had to keep kind of learning and uncovering more about the topic, even though I just felt so shaken by it though. Like I was just like repulsed, I guess is how I felt. And then because I was like, driving to and from work, listening to all of this stuff, I just was like, oh, like it was just a bit shaken and just like sort of not really knowing just how to launch into a conversation with somebody who's like, good morning, and you're like, oh my god, did you know that the down industry is like so cruel? And so, like, I just didn't know how to broach those conversations. So I don't know that it was other people rejecting veganism that made me feel isolated, or if it was just that I felt like I was going through some sort of internal kind of reckoning, and that made me feel different and isolated. You know what I mean? Like, it might have been me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that because, initially you learn so much. Well, you might find out one piece of information, but then that is sort of like this tunnel that you go down where you learn so much more and then you want to tell everyone about that. And so it's a really sort of difficult, I suppose, difficult thing to manage or find your way through. And obviously, like you said, you did some research and really put yourself into learning more and trying to manage that moving forward.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember when I was learning about all of this too, like I sort of I feel like I haven't actually finished the journey of learning about veganism, which is fun, and I guess we probably never will as vegans, right? And that's kind of exciting on the one hand, but it's still also scary to me, the thought of re-immersing myself in some of that um, truth really, and the truth telling that you get from documentaries, because it didn't take me long to get down this tunnel of information, before I was like, I know enough, like I've made my decision. I only got like 20 minutes into the Earthlings the movie, before like I was just a wreck, and we turned it off because I just knew, I think because I'd learned the information over a podcast, which is awful because it was like described, but it was seeing it like is just another level of just absolute horror. And I think because I'd already sort of learned enough, I was like, okay, I've seen a bit, like um I'm going to stop now, because I was just getting into a very bad headspace. But I was like, I know enough that I'm very confident in my decision that going vegan is the right thing to do for the animals and for my own ethics, and just because I don't want to participate in this. And then since then, ashamedly, I haven't really watched any other documentaries or anything. Not a lot since I made that decision, which was nearly 3 years ago now. But I'm conscious that I do want to keep learning, and I do want to keep it very front of mind why I'm doing this. Like we were saying before we started recording, like I'm working full time, and I'm sure you are the same, because you're working full time and you've got your podcast and your pets as well. And it can be hard to juggle sometimes, but I do want to keep my why front of mind, and for me that's animals. So probably wouldn't hurt. I need to watch Milked. That's the one that's on my list. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I know what you mean. I think it's a really difficult thing to balance, because I understand we feel as vegans, especially, the ethical vegans for the animals, we feel like almost there's a duty for us to watch these things for knowledge, but also to, understand what the animals are going through. But you also have to balance that with, we are vegan and we don't contribute to that. So, that can actually be quite traumatic for us to continue to have to watch and bear witness when we're not contributing to what is happening to them. So it's a really difficult thing to manage.
Yeah. Um yeah, it is something, as you say, that you use the words bear witness, and I think that's so powerful too. And part of me like doesn't want to turn away, you know what I mean? Like even now, like it's like I still want to remember that their suffering is so, it brings tears to my eyes just thinking about it. But their suffering is so, it's happening constantly. And I think you just don't want to lose sight of that. But, yeah, like I thought something that I would really like to do in the future is probably go to a vigil. I guess is, like Vegan Diaries, I guess, is like this kind of bright and sunny representation of vegan food and like, lifestyle. But I do want to challenge myself to bear witness, because I don't know, there's something like graceful about that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's sort of like, I don't know, paying respect. I don't know. Yeah, it's just a beautiful turn of phrase.
Yeah, yeah. And so yeah, I do like how you say, that your page and a lot of what you're about is that positive side. And I think that's, that is a way to manage what is going on in the world. So, you mentioned that you are quite passionate about food and recipe development. So, what made you decide that that was going to be the way you were going to move forward? And how has that, I suppose, that journey come along for you? I'm guessing it would have changed since you began.
Yeah, it's funny. I think honestly, I question why I even do food, to be honest. Like I have, and I have been meaning to talk about this on either the podcast or on, I don't know, a recipe video or something. I have so much imposter syndrome every single time I post a recipe. The reason I started doing food, this is me having my existential crisis during mid-interview, but the reason I started a foodie account was because I was too scared to start a vegan account that talked about anything other than food, because I felt that food was neutral and I've never been a confrontational person. If anything, I'm probably more of a people pleaser, which is not a good trait. It's just unfortunate reality of my personality. And I just didn't feel comfortable addressing the issue head on, which is why I feel like I just kind of, skirted around the edges by being like, oh, here's veganism and it's positive and wonderful. But in reality, like, I was hurting at the time, you know what I mean, when I started it. And that was why I just felt like I had to have something to keep me busy, to occupy that, that, to take that sad energy and try and make it something positive. But I wasn't really a very good cook, like, before, like, at all. Like, before I went vegan. I think I'm a competent cook now, but I wouldn't say that I'm a natural cook necessarily. Like, I love food. I've always loved food, and I liked baking a lot when I was younger. So that, like, and I do like, don't get me wrong, I love food, like, big eater, love eating out. I don't like pretentious food. I don't really get fine dining. I just like humble kind of big serves of nutritious, yummy, or decadent food, So, so sometimes I feel like I shouldn't be, or that I don't qualify to make food content, which is a bit weird because, like, that's what my whole page is. But I guess there are a lot of other people out there maybe who are like me, who are also, just like the taste of food, and who aren't, highbrow with their dining, and they're not looking for a culinary masterpiece. They're just looking for something tasty. So, but yeah, I have thought since I've been vegan for a bit longer now, I have thought about posting content that is a bit more to the point about what I'm trying to get at. But I have also sort of carved out a little niche for myself in the food area now. So it's sort of like, I guess, how do I kind of combine the two now that I have a bit more confidence that I can address those things more head on? And I guess probably the podcast is a gateway to that, I suppose, now, where I'm having some more conversations around the ethics and the topic and the social aspects and things like that. But I do love food, but I do question sometimes why food.
I think we can all agree we all love food. I don't understand vegans who don't love food. So
Yeah.
I think you're definitely on a winner there. But also as well, I mean, something from my personal perspective of your page is that, your recipes and food that you make is very, like you said, wholesome, very easy to make, which I think is something that is really valuable, because I'm guessing that you may sometimes get approached by people who aren't vegan that, want to try something, and it's something that's really approachable, like the way you show the step-by-step sort of approach and how you make it, and the end product is so easy for people to follow.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, that makes me feel a little bit better, actually, because yeah, the 0 point, well, not 0 point. Like, seeing creative food is cool, but I want to provide practical solutions for people. So that's really great feedback. Thank you.
And I guess, where do you get your inspiration from for your different recipes? Like, is it things that you used to have before being vegan, or?
Yeah. So I grew up in, like, a very how do I say this? White Aussie kind of regional Victoria sort of meat and three veg kind of house. So super Anglo, and I grew up on, like, chicken and bacon casserole. What do we have? We used to have those pork steaks with, like, the pineapple ring on top with melted cheese under a grill. Like, this is yeah, I love my parents so much. I really used to like that food too. Cocktail franks occasionally, sausages, barbecue chops, like that's the kind of food I grew up on. So, but I'm not directly trying to replicate it all of the time, but I am trying to convey some of that, like, familiarity, I guess, with the food. Like, when you think back to when you're a kid and you think of your favorite meals, and they're kind of cozy and inviting, and I want to create food that is either functional, that's easy to make, or that evokes some sort of, like, warm feeling. Like, I think there's so much more to food than just, taste. There's more to it than it being, energy, and it being nutritious, and it being even tasting good, and even being pleasurable. There's so many memories wrapped up in it, and I think as I was touched on at the start, me feeling distance from people and ways of living that, now don't seem right to me anymore, like a barbecue where there's dead animals that are being eaten. It doesn't feel like the right thing to me anymore. So, but I still want to connect with those people and I still want to cherish those memories. Like, it's like, I don't want to look back and feel guilt and shame necessarily. It's like, I want to take the memory of it being a nice occasion, you know what I mean, and make it vegan. So I'm trying to do that more. I don't think I had nearly as much intention behind the food at the start, but now I'm trying to do that and recreate things that like kind of mean something. So some examples of that would be like, I did one recently, which was like a coconut ice recipe, which is just like obviously just like the most basic like little dessert thing in the world. But my husband's mum used to make it for him when he was a kid, so it had like a little bit of meaning to him. Things like golden syrup dumplings, like any kind of like ochre, naff, Aussie sort of vibe food. That's what I like to make most of all. But I am lucky now because the page has grown a little bit that I can do paid collaborations as well. So sometimes I'll tweak like what I'm doing a little bit to fit their product or what they're using, and I also do like a collaboration with a meal kit provider. So a great chef, he makes his most amazing recipes, but he doesn't really want to do reels and recipe videos. And I'm like, I'm time poor. I'm looking for lots of recipes to give to people, make their life easier, get the vegan word out there. So we're kind of doing this collaboration where he'll send me his recipes and I'll make a video out of it and post it. So he does lots of like Asian fusion and really kind of creative things that I would just never really think of, but they're delicious. So it's a bit of a random mix at the moment on the page of like his recipes, my recipes, but definitely something for everybody, I'd say right now.
And what would you say is like a signature dish? Like if you're having people over to your house, is there something that you always is sort of your go-to dish?
Oh my God. If you are having people over to your house who do not, who are not vegan, who eat meat, you have to try making tofu katsu curry. It is so yummy. It's not even my recipe, but it is so good. It is I'll send you the link so you can include it in the show notes, but it is the most delicious curry and you can make it ahead of time. You make the sauce a day ahead and then it's like a tofu schnitzel. So you just, which is literally just like as easy as pressing a block of tofu, you cut it into 4 pieces, coat it in aquafaba panko crumbs, fry it. It is so yummy with white rice. Like everybody is blown away whenever I make that for them. But what else do I like to do? To be honest, sometimes like when I'm having people over, I get really lazy and I'll just make like burgers and things like that because there's so many great alternatives now. If anybody, Beyond Meat is just like the best of the best. But yeah, I do love that katsu curry recipe most of all. So I'll send you a link.
Yeah, sounds good. And would you say you're a sweet or savory gal?
Oh, both. Probably more savory if I had to. Probably, yeah. Like if you gave me a choice between chocolate and a bag of salt and vinegar chips, I would choose the chips.
I understand. That is a mutual feeling. It's very close, but I understand. What inspired you to start your podcast?
Yes. So I have had a bit of a tumultuous couple of years in COVID with my day job, with my career, I guess, with my professional life, and I was unemployed for a couple of months last year. But I did manage to be employed for most of COVID, which was great. But because I know a lot of people weren't. But yeah, I was unemployed for a couple of months. And I have always loved podcasts. I love listening to them. They're just so immersive, I guess, when you're listening to it, and it feels like you really get to know somebody when you're listening to their voice, and you don't actually prefer it without necessarily having like a video of somebody. Like I've never watched long form YouTube or anything like that, but just always love podcasts, listening to them on my commutes. And I'd always told myself that I couldn't start a podcast because I had very unsuccessfully managed my blog over the years. And I was like, no, you have to start writing more regularly for your blog before you can start a podcast. Like this was how my head works. And then I was unemployed and then I was like, no, fuck that. I'm going to start my podcast. Like I want to talk to people. But the main vision for the podcast was really just to like platform some of the amazing people that I have met while making the Instagram page and on the foodie account, because I've made so many friends, I've met so many cool people, and a podcast, like as you would know, it's just the best opportunity to like chat with people that you like but don't necessarily know. Like you're like you can just reach, it's so wild, you can just reach out to people and be like, hey, would you be on my podcast? Like, and it's like kind of like the equivalent of asking them on like a quick date, but because it's a podcast, it's like, you know, not weird. And they'll like come and chat to you. So it's just been the most awesome experience. And I've loved getting everybody's different perspectives on why they went vegan and how they're staying vegan. And I realize that there's so many diverse people within the community and diversity of thought too, you know, like everybody's got a slightly different angle on the topic. And I've loved it. And it's funny too, because like I'm sure you've realized this as well, but like there's such a common thread sometimes in the experience of going vegan, you know, like it's just like there must be like, you know how there's like this, what is it, 7 stages of grief, or is it 7 stages of denial or something? There must be like the 7 stages of vegan. Like it's like I'm sure somebody's done work on this anyway. But yeah, that was pretty much why I really wanted to celebrate the people that I have met. But it's been going for a little while now, and I'm sort of thinking, a little while, it's only been 6 months, but I'm sort of thinking that I'd like to do some solo episodes here and there now because, I don't know, just to mix it up. I think it's like a confidence thing. Like I just haven't had the confidence to speak on an episode alone without a guest. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking for the podcast.
And what sort of topics would you cover in the episodes by yourself?
Well, so I've found that the podcast episodes that do the best on Vegan Diaries are ones that relate to nutrition, which is so interesting to me because it's not I'm not interested in nutrition, but it's not the most interesting to me out of all of the interviews that I've done, but they consistently do well and like consistently just like keep getting downloads even like long after like I've released the episode. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then I'm like, you know, I want to give people information that they're interested in. So I was thinking that I could provide like meals. Obviously, I'm not a nutritionist, so I don't want to get into the nutrition area. But I think people really like it when they're getting practical kind of takeaway information. So, like where they're like clearly learning something from each episode. So, I think rather than doing the conversational ones every time, I'm like going to do ones where it's like, you know, here's how I replace cheese or something like in my diet or whatever. Like here's how or things you need to know about vegan food versus like omnivorous food. That one was an idea that I had where I was going to explain the difference between like having like a center plate protein versus having like a mixed plate of food, or maybe somewhere it's like, you know, common mistakes for newbie vegans or something, you know what I mean? Just something like that where it's like, I'm not going to get into the nutrition stuff too much, but just like at a high level where I can just give people some clear takeaways. Because I think there's quite a lot of people who are listening to my podcast who are totally new to it as well. And I want to make sure that I'm always giving practical stuff, because ultimately my goal is to like try and like convince you to go vegan. So it's like, yeah, so stuff like that. But I haven't like, I need to flesh it out in my head. Obviously, I'm just spitballing right now, but stuff like that.
No, well, they sound like great ideas. So it's really exciting. It sounds like it'll be really positive to integrate that into your guests, like into the in between your guest episodes.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about doing solo episodes as well?
I've only done the one where I shared my story. And I would say it's really interesting. Like it's so different speaking by yourself. Like it's kind of something I've considered, but not so much. If anything, I kind of had the idea of the start of doing like specific episodes on certain topics. So bringing a guest back that might specialize in a certain area. So like I have a couple of times I've had someone come back talking about like effective activism, another guest come back talking about like meditation, different types of meditation, and actually doing like a meditation during the podcast. So I've done that a few times. But I don't know, I just find that the range, like the diversity of guests is something that I think really draws people in, because they're from such a, you know, a diverse range of like backgrounds, whether it be how they became vegan to what they do now that, you know, spreads the vegan message. It's so different that I think that is still something that's quite engaging. So Yeah, it might be something. I mean, for me, my biggest change has been after the first year. This is now coming, like I'm up to over 12 months of episodes now. And my biggest change now has been including on YouTube. Like I had quite a few people request like entire episodes on YouTube. So that was sort of my biggest sort of change this, like the start of this new like year. And yeah, we'll see what else
Wow.
happens. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Yeah, I didn't see, I'm not a YouTuber person, so
Mm.
I don't get it. But yeah, there you go. That's cool.
Yeah, I'm the same. I totally get it because I'm like you. I always listen to them on the commute to work or when I'm walking my dog or something like that. So I'm very much a podcast listener, but I had a number of people ask about visual through YouTube. So I was like, oh, let's give it a go.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you've got it.
yeah, exactly. So I also know as well, Liz, I think it was this year, unless I'm getting my dates wrong, but you were like a vegan easy, like one of the challenge ambassadors. So how did that come about?
Oh yeah. That was really, really great actually. So I've worked with Vegan Easy. Well, I've shared some of my recipes with Vegan Easy, and I have a lovely relationship with them. Lefke, who is the coordinator of Vegan Easy, because it's all run by Animal Liberation Victoria. She came on the podcast, and she's just so lovely, just a really, really wonderful woman. And we always kind of just reach out when I have like any ideas on how I might be able to support them. I recently contacted them because I was thinking, I could help them with some social media content for their page. And yeah, we kind of, I guess I was just sort of like in their network, I suppose. And then that was how I got invited to be one of their ambassadors. But it was really fun. That was during the month of November. They run the Vegan Easy 30-day challenge as kind of like a live event, and you can join and follow along, and like there's a Facebook group and everybody's posting in there and like kind of supporting one another and providing like suggestions and recipe ideas and stuff like that. So yeah, that was really fun. I was on the Facebook group and got to see like what people were experiencing, and it was, yeah, it's funny watching other people go through it for the first time, and you're like remembering what it was like when you went vegan, and you're like, oh wow, it's like a trip back down memory lane. But no, Vegan Easy is a wonderful organization, and yeah, it's really nice to be connected with them.
Do you sort of see yourself in that space as almost like a mentor, whether it be through your social pages or through, helping Vegan Easy?
I don't, but that is like a great way. I'm like, I love that idea, but I hadn't really seen it in that way. But I guess I suppose if somebody is new to veganism, then I probably am filling that role if I'm showing them steps. And yeah, I like that idea. Yeah, that feels good. I should yeah, think of it in that way. The funny thing with social media is that I don't really know how many people exactly are vegan who are following me and how many people are not vegan or who are very new to it. So sometimes I don't want to um you know what I mean? Like I don't want to provide recipes that are too basic or like talk about things that are like, really obvious to somebody who's been vegan for a long time, like, like what is nutritional yeast kind of thing. Like I feel like I don't 100% know the split of my audience. Maybe I need to do another poll in stories. But yeah, that's a really nice way of putting it though. So maybe I'll consider myself as a mentor now.
No, because I just thought it's something that, I'm pretty sure that people would see your recipes and be happy to reach out because you're quite a friendly person. You come across that as that on Instagram. So I'm thinking that, you could be that person they lean on to ask questions, whether it be simple questions of replacements, like you were saying, or recipe ideas, or even other things, they might ask for your experience in transitioning to going vegan.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good point. Maybe I should talk about that more on there, and yeah, maybe make that a bit more known. Yeah, that's a really great point. I'm going to take that. I'm going to think about how I could be that person for some people, because I think it's one thing to share a recipe and to let people kind of come to you with what they think of that recipe, or maybe they'll save it and make it later. Do you know what I mean? But if you actually put in like a comment or something or in the caption and you were like, where are you at on your vegan journey? Do you need any help? Like that would be a perfect caption to something literally like I just posted tonight, a ricotta recipe. And instead of saying, have you ever tried vegan ricotta? Maybe I should say, how did you find the experience of transitioning from dairy cheese to vegan cheese? Is there anything that you're struggling with? Yeah. Maybe if I just reposition it, like same video, just reposition slightly, you know? I like that. Thank you.
That's right. We're brainstorming here.
Yeah, I'm loving it. It's great. Strategy session.
And so I guess for anyone that is new to veganism or is, I guess struggling in the early stages, like what sort of advice would you have for them?
I think everybody probably says this, but really getting clear on why you're doing it is just makes it so much easier. Like it's not a diet. Like I've never stuck to a diet in my entire life, and I've managed to stick to veganism and it's been so easy. It hasn't been something that I've felt was forced or like you know what I mean? Like it's just like a vegan food that's not vegan. It was described to me by Kit from Soy Baby on Instagram. She described like non-vegan food as just like she's like it's just kind of like a non-food, like it's like I don't even like it's not like at the work morning tea and there's these donuts and it's like, oh, like hold me back kind of thing, like it's not a struggle. So I think if you are struggling, then it's probably because you haven't really got that clear why, like in your heart. Like it has to be just like I literally feel like I've got like animals like fucking like etched in my heart or something like that. Like so it's not hard for me. But I get that for everybody though, it doesn't happen overnight. And at the start, in fairness, there were loads of times that I would just like, occasionally like it was like, there was some milk left over in the fridge and stuff. So I drank that. And like, a friend came over one night and then I'd already made brownies. So I like ate that. And Steve, it was so funny at the time, I was sitting there, I was like, is that vegan? And I was just like, don't judge me. So I say that, but it took me a while to actually like a few weeks, I guess. But yeah, so my steps in summary, get really clear on your why, traumatize yourself with some documentaries, or if you're doing it for the environment, you can also traumatize yourself with some documentaries. I personally don't think that the health argument is super strong. Like it's like you can be a healthy and live an awesome life on a vegan diet, like on a plant-based diet, but I think if you have something bigger than yourself, it makes it so much easier to stay, on that journey. Like so try and go deeper than the health argument, and then just find foods that like make you feel good. Find substitutes that fulfill the nutritional equivalent and the taste equivalent of things that you used to eat. Don't like be tricked into thinking that coconut yogurt is going to be like the best replacement for your Greek yogurt. Like, you learn a little bit about this along the way, but the best thing that I can tell you is that there are substitutes. People don't describe it in this way, right? But I've worked it out. There are some substitutes which are for taste, and there are some substitutes which are for nutritional value. And then there's this magical third group where they overlap between the two. So don't be fooled into thinking that jackfruit is going to satisfy you. A tiny little portion of jackfruit that's the same volume as a portion of pulled pork is going to satisfy you in the same way. Make sure that you are getting the volume of food that you need, and ideally try and find those substitutes that do both have the nutritional content and the taste. So some of the mock meats kind of do fulfill that because they've got a lot of protein and stuff in them. But yeah, I think staying full will make it a lot easier. So make sure you're getting the right amount of food.
Yeah. I love it. I love the third group where they meet. That's the happy place.
Yeah, that's the best place. I try to stay in that place always.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned before a few of the things you're looking at doing or sort of progressing into through your social media. Is there anything else that you might be looking at doing that you'd like to share with guests?
Through social media and podcasts. No, I mean, I am looking at potentially doing a bit of a project with Naturally Nina. So Nina is a nutritionist. She's been on the podcast a few times, and as I was saying before, the nutrition episodes always do really well, but particularly Nina's episodes do really, really well. So she has a very loyal audience, and we get along really well, and we were kind of brainstorming about any other kind of projects we could do to support people with their nutrition and diet because it's clearly like very interesting to people. So I'm sort of working with her and kind of picking her brain on that because she has all of the the qualifications to support something like that. But it's still a little way off, but yeah, hopefully something exciting there in the next couple of months or so.
Seeing as this is somewhat of a brainstorming session, I'd be interested to know, have you ever thought about doing like cooking classes or your own cookbook or like ebook?
Oh, that would be the more obvious choice, wouldn't it? I have, I have. I would love, honestly, I would love to have a book one day. But sometimes I just question, I'm like, should it be food or should it be like talking about the practical, like, or not the practical, but like the steps of going vegan, or should it be about sharing people's vegan journeys? Like, I keep having this little questioning moment whether food is the right thing. But maybe it could be, seeing as we are brainstorming, maybe it could be a recipe book full of Anglo Aussie Ocker meals. That would be my dream. Something
Yeah.
like steak and I don't know, just parmas. I don't know.
No, I was going to say, I almost feel like it's something that you could combine together, like potentially you could combine that, sharing of stories and how to go vegan with some recipes in between.
Mm, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much. That's great. I love all of your ideas are just like golden.
It's always easier to have ideas from the outside, isn't it, than when you're in the inside?
Oh yeah, I got no idea. I'm just in the trenches.
Well, if people do want to reach out to you, Liz, if they have any questions or they want to follow your recipes, and your podcast, what's the best way for them to do that?
So podcast is available on pretty much most apps, but the most place people listen to it is on Apple or Spotify. So it's called Vegan Diaries, 2 words. You can search it there. And then on Instagram and TikTok, I am Vegan Diaries, all 1 word with 3 underscores at the end because I was very late to that handle. If you can find me on all those platforms, I'm probably most active on Instagram.
Cool. Well, I'll link all that in the show notes. And before we finish up, is there anything you think we might have missed that you wanted to chat about?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered it all. If there is anybody listening who is new to veganism, like, stick at it and enjoy the substitutes and yeah, just immerse yourself in the whole world and the documentaries. And I promise it's all worth it. And everything kind of goes back to normal and settles down eventually.
I guess that is a question I have then for you, Liz, is, what, it's very hard to say I know one thing, but, what would you say that you love most about being vegan?
What do I love most about being vegan? It is a really it is a really beautiful way to live. I have to say, like that sounds really cliched, but at the end of the day, even if like, even if I could eat meat in a way where it was like, not I don't know, not cruel. Like say it's lab grown meat or something. I just wouldn't do it. Like it's like this is just like I love being vegan. Like I love eating plants most of the time. It's wonderful to just feel like you are living your values. Like it's so there's something really peaceful about it. You feel good about yourself. And like I said earlier, like, I was somebody who, or I am somebody who's a little bit of a people pleaser sometimes. So it was really like a big self-esteem boost for me when I was like comfortable being different. I was happy to be different and happy to have made this like, kind of slightly alternative quotation marks kind of choice. It gave me a lot of self-confidence just to stand in that and to say, no, like this isn't acceptable to me. I'm okay to be different. Like, sure, you can like make a joke about my lunch or whatever, like in the staff room at work. Like I don't care. So there's something really powerful in that. And we have the best food. We're at the forefront of like culinary innovation. Look at all these products. Like, look at all of the products that are coming out. Like, it is an exciting category to shop in. I have to say, like, beyond that, like, because I used to work in supermarkets, like, the biggest food brands in the world are all trying to make a vegan version. Like we're living in history. Like it's so cool. Like come along, it's fun. Like there's so many awesome parts to being vegan. Oh, and the community. Like that's just like the best bit. Like meeting people like yourself. We're really friendly. Like you should just come and hang out.
I definitely agree. And I feel as though it's something, where you feel as though you belong. Like, yes, you are living in line with your own values, but also, it's so nice to have that community feel and really feel like you're all, like-minded and living in the same way, which is also really like special.
Yeah, and everybody wants to see you succeed, everybody wants you to be happy, healthy, and feel your best on a vegan diet. And Yeah, I mean, this is why like occasionally I'll get comments on TikTok being like, veganism is a cult. And I'm like, I shared a story the other day and I was like, welcome to my cult, everybody. And everyone's like messaging me being like, happy to be here. Thanks for picking me. And I was like, yes, the best cult that ever existed.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a favorite quote that you would like to share with us to finish the episode?
Yes, I thought about this. So this is one that I'm trying to live up to at the moment. So it is, I'm going to get it wrong. Hang on. It is, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And I got this from, actually, I'd heard it once before, and then I recently did a podcast interview with Healthy Lindley, and she said it in there, and I was like, it's just so powerful, like it's a quote, and I'm trying to put myself out there a bit more, be a bit more brave, I guess, in the way that I show up in the world. And I just think that there's so much power in your own mind. And when you set your mind to something and you set your intention to something, like there's really nothing that can stop you. But it's also obviously on the flip side too. If you see the world in a negative way, and if you tell yourself that you can't do things, and then if you have limiting beliefs about what you're capable of, then that's probably true as well. Do you know what I mean? So it's sort of like about stepping into your own power, I guess.
Yeah. No, I love that. I have heard that before, and it's definitely like something that rings true and something that I feel aligned with. So thank you for sharing, and thanks for being here tonight, Liz. I look forward to definitely getting your tofu katsu curry recipe. I'll share that with all the listeners during the week of your episode, and I can't wait to see people creating it in their own kitchen.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much, Alicia. Thank you for having me. It was so fun.
Anytime, my pleasure.